You had the Prop 8 in California, gay marriage, and Republicans have been gloating for some time because there was a meme made by liberals where it was like things that will happen if gay people can get married. And then it was a pie graph where it said, terrorists will win, and it said there will be a pandemic and a lockdown and things like this. And the pie chart said gay people will get married. And the joke was nothing's going to happen. And then these things happened, so everyone started laughing. The slippery slope argument being made by conservatives at the time was you open the door here, it's going to go in that direction. And it's a logical argument.
Almost every slippery slope argument that has been made in culture wars since before Elvis has actually proved to be correct.
Well, the logic is really simple. Conservatives made the argument that if there are two men who are married, what's going to happen is they're going to be walking down the street. And then they're going to argue, well, a child's going to ask about it, so you're going to have to teach them in schools what's going on with the men walking down the street and kissing in public. And that's a slippery slope. And the liberals said, no, they'll be in the privacy of their own homes. Well, sure enough, now liberals are arguing just that. The teacher is gay. He needs to teach his students what being gay is and show them these books. And the slippery slope wasn't a slippery slope at all. It was the logical path.
And you thought it was a math teacher, is the irony. Is that this
You need to know that you're gay teacher. What is that even like?
Right, this is part of the curriculum, regardless of what the teacher is teaching.
So my concern, I suppose, is the civil libertarian position, one that I've maintained for a long time, has consistently said we must defend the freedom because we fear the slippery slope of if we ban speech, they will use the speech bans against us for other means. And it's like, yes. And if we tolerate vile behavior, then they will push vile behavior in other areas all the same. It goes in both directions. If we do nothing, they get worse, as we've seen with child drag shows. And if we do something, then they try to use it against us all the same. I don't know that there's actually a simple answer. No. The one thing I can tell you is we need to build cultural institutions that do not tolerate this kind of stuff. It doesn't need to be illegal if society rejects it because you will be shunned and ostracized. So we should bring back shame.
Stigmatization, yeah.
So in order to do that, you have to have a standard from which departure is a source of departure from which is a reason for shame. What's that standard going to be? So historically, that standard was something that was set by religion. What do you do when people don't believe? You have someone like Mike Cernovich, who lived a pretty out there lifestyle, in the day. He found religion. He didn't necessarily find God. He concluded, we need this in our lives. Yep. And this is something that people who are not reactive recognize. And that it's true that if you are contemptuous of a religious tradition, of the entire idea of a divine revelation of truth, like if it really offends you as being impossible to believe, then you're a hypocrite. I understand. What can you do? You literally don't believe it. You don't believe. But if you can acknowledge that you might not understand everything, that there might just be something to the tradition that you, or at this stage in history, your parents, your grandparents were born into, that you should at least look to it as a source of stability that enabled the values that you hold dear to have been transmitted to you. That's the starting point, I think.
There's a great video. I can't remember who wrote about it. Carl Benjamin may have commented on this at some point, that a constitution is what constitutes the people. And most peoples in the past, they believed their society had a constitution, the social beliefs and the social moral fabric, but they didn't need to write it down because everybody agreed. And the founding fathers here were like, nah, we better write it down because we want to make sure that it's clear as crystal for legal purposes, and you don't defy us. The problem now is when you get to the point where you have to write things down, your society is already fractured. The idea that we have to write down and tell people we will use force against you if you abuse children is terrifying. It means that there's a large population of evil people who would do it without the threat of force against them.
Well, I tell people, sometimes someone will say, I want you to work out a partnership agreement. And here are my concerns. What I hear is that these are two people who don't trust each other as far as they can see each other. And sometimes I'll say, why are you even considering going into partnership with this person? I'm glad that you came here so that if there are issues, everyone's expectations are on the same page. But you have to at least start out with an understanding that it's possible that things can go wrong, but this is a person that I want to work with. This is a person that I can go to sleep at night knowing that He's my partner, and he's taking care of business, and he's fundamentally loyal to the partnership. Same thing with a society.
One of the things, your remarks you made really speaks to me is the fact that if someone can acknowledge that maybe there's things that I don't understand and that I don't have all the answers for. One thing that I notice a lot in the music industry is the arguments against religion, or the way that people conceptualize religion. It's almost always very immature. It's, I don't need the sky daddy, which is, it's such a childish way to conceptualize religion.
Whose fault is that? Whose fault is it?
I don't know. I think that I don't know.
The generations that came before us did not instill the values of moral tradition in their children.
It's beyond. I do agree that's not wrong, but it's not only that, because the argument that people make is, or essentially the argument they're making is, I know everything there is necessary to negotiate the world. That's what they're saying. They're saying, I don't need a God. And because I don't need a God, you having a God you believing in a God is silly. And from my understanding, there's no society ever in all human history, no matter how far they're separated in space or in time, there's no society that has not had religion. So for people today to say, oh, we don't need religion, or I don't need religion, it's very, very arrogant. You were going to say? When,
Liberals, or not necessarily liberals, but atheists make the argument that, I don't need a God to tell me not to kill. Right? Cenk Uygur was here. He made a similar argument. He's like, why would people need some kind of like God to? Because the argument was that morals come from God. The only thing I think of when someone says that is, sure for you, but what do we say to the murderers and the child rapists and the torturers, the villains? What do we say to them?
Wait, it's not only that. That's great, Cenk. You're not going to go out and kill anyone. What happens when the government instructs you that it's your duty as a citizen to kill someone, and if you don't do so, you will be killed, or you will be imprisoned, or what's going to happen? And okay, maybe we're not going to ask you to kill. Maybe we're going to ask you, however, to inform on people so that they can be killed, or so that they can be deprived of liberty. What's your reference? Where's the table that you go to determine these questions of how do you do it? It's so easy in a sophomore dormitory discussion to talk about the moral system that you've worked out for yourself. One of the hard things about moral systems that are not the product of your own calculation is that they will sometimes ask you to do things that you don't understand and that don't even sit right with you. It's a great challenge. You can try to understand why that is. In Judaism, we say that there are certain aspects, certain commands from God that we are not meant to understand. But it is our duty nonetheless so let's be the Aztecs. They had a religion, and their religion was that they would rip your heart out and sacrifice you. And that was the tradition they grew up in, to which I respond, you're right. You see, you then have to take the next step and say, not only are you going to have a religion, but you're going to have to be prepared to defend the beliefs in your religion against people who have different beliefs, because they might want to take what you have, or they might want to make you live the way they want you to live. So you're going to have to not only have religion, but you're going to have to live it, and you're going to have to reckon with it. It's a very big take.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.